You don't like the Drake?
I hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
The Drake is good. You like the Drake? I love the Drake.
What about the Drake? Oh, screw the Drake. I love the Drake.
Hello everyone, welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. This podcast will take a chronological look at the third Robin, Tim Drake. We will be looking at the classic 90s 2000 Robin series and other notable comics with Tim in that era, while also simultaneously taking a look at Tim in the modern era as Red Robin in the pages of DC Comics, plus other Robin and Batman happenings in the world. So sit back, relax, and find out why everyone loves the Drake.
Good for them. Love the Drake.
Got to love the Drake.
I'm impressed.
What can I say? I'm irresistible.
Hello everyone, welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. I'm your host, Rob Myers. Welcome to episode 68 of the show, if I got my numbers correct here. You can find us through all the social medias. I was telling myself I'm going to give each one of these, because this, like a comic book, this could be somebody's first podcast. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. If you have a social media account, you can find Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake in some variation of that. If you want to email into the show, you can do so at Robin, eltdpodcast@yahoo.com. We've got some iTunes reviews. We're probably not going to read those on this show, but the next show that's going to be coming up, we will start reading some iTunes reviews and other emails that we've got in. Go over to iTunes and give us a like. That'll kind of help us get the word out about the show. People are wondering, hey, listen to this Batman podcast. Is there a Robin podcast? Let people know about it. Give us a nice little 5-star review, and we're going to start reading the reviews online. I know I've kind of said that before, but we've kind of had some other shows kind of come up, but that will be a part of the show, reading your iTunes reviews. So tonight, we're recording a little bumper into the show that you're getting ready to hear, and with me tonight is Terence. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I am not doing good, Rob, but it's a very first world problem. But I finally just stopped laughing from the last episode about 15 minutes ago, and I'm ready to record again. And when you said that this is episode 68, so that means that next episode is 69. You gotta you've got to get the Bill and Ted's voice clip or the audio clip of Bill and Ted going 69 and the favorite number. Mine not so good though. It's a very first world problem. It's DC Comics and Batman related. It's nothing like major. So, right. but I guess we're gonna get into that. So, but other than that, everything is just dandy.
Yeah, I'll just be like, I'm sure you being a teacher, when you start seeing those things, like the kids could laugh about it. I remember a teacher specifically saying, we're going to read pages 67, 68 through 70. And we're like, doesn't that include 69? And he just totally glossed all over it. He was purposely not saying that number. So maybe the podcast will just skip 69 and we'll go right to 70. People will be like, did we miss something somewhere? So
68.5.
Right. There you go.
It's funny because when I first started teaching, I was teaching older kids, high school and 14, 15, and they catch every little thing, any possible thing that could have any kind of double meaning, so you watch carefully everything you say and phrase, make some weird phrasing to not, sound like, and then now I teach 11 and 12-year-olds, and they're so young and innocent, they totally miss it. Sometimes I'll say things, I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, and it goes right over their head. They just look at me smiling, and I'm like, oh, you guys are so sweet and innocent. You did not catch that. In 2 years, you'll be laughing or something. But so the next episode will be fun. Every time you say it, I'll giggle like a 15-year-old. Yeah.
There you go. Like we were saying, Terence had mentioned, we got some first world problems. Rebirth, it looks like the Rebirth banner is gone from the books, which we kind of knew that was going to happen. They have this nice little tab or thing off to the side to let you know, oh, this is a DC Universe book, and there's a little Bat logo, or there's a Superman logo to let you know what family books there are. And when Rebirth started, they were kind of saying this is going to be like a 5-year journey. now that we're almost 3 years into Rebirth, it's like the wheels are changing a little bit, and a big shakeup was getting Brian Michael Bendis to DC Comics, and everybody was wondering, is he going to, probably the jump that people thought was going to happen, he's going to land in a Batman book. And reading a couple interviews, he really wanted to do Superman. So it's like, well, we have Dan Jurgens on Action Comics, and that's fantastic. We've got Tomasi and Gleason on Superman, like, they must be doing the Man of Steel book. So it sounds like Bendis said, no, I want both books. So both creative teams have been kind of tossed out, and I think Patrick Gleason is staying on the book as the artist in Superman. I'm not sure who the artist is in Action Comics yet, but Bendis is going to be writing both of those with a Man of Steel miniseries that's going to lead into that. But it sounds like because of that, he wants control of the Superman universe. So we're losing Supergirl. That book is getting canceled, and then kind of coming home to everybody's like, what? What's that have to do with Tim Drake? We'll get there. It's kind of coming into Gotham City a little bit with Tomasi writing Super Sons. That book is getting canceled, so Damian has to find a new home. And then that kind of stems out into Detective Comics, where Tim is, and James Tynion is going to be leaving the book after, I wrote this right here, after issue 981. So everybody was kind of hoping he was going to make it to 1,000, and that's not going to happen. The rumor is, and don't quote me on this, by the time this podcast comes out, it could be, but it sounds like we might get, I'm blanking on his name, I just said it, not Pat Gleason.
Tomasi.
Tomasi, my gosh. 8 o'clock, my mind starts going to sleep.
Sorry, I had my microphone muted for when you said that James Tynion was no longer on Detective, and I screamed bloody murder. So it took me a second to click my microphone back. But yeah, Tomasi.
Tomasi is potentially, that's the rumor kind of going around, that he might wind up. I'm fine with that, but I've really liked what Tynion has been doing on Detective. And I don't know if you've seen the most recent solicitation image. It's very much the homage of Detective Comics 934 that started his run. Is, you have Red Robin and Clayface and Batgirl, and spoilers coming in from the top with them standing on the Detective Comics logo. The image for Detective Comics 981 is Batman standing by himself, looking like sad Affleck Batman, with the whole team disbanding. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, Red Robin is swinging off somewhere and Batwoman's swinging. You kind of see Azrael off to the side. So this could be the end of the 90s Rebirth era for us Bat fans that really liked this version of Detective Comics. And we haven't talked about Tim in the modern area on the podcast for a while, and we have something special coming up, so don't worry, we'll get to A Lonely Place of Living. But I just kind of want to ask you, Terence, I know we're not to the end of the run yet. It's going to be in May when his run officially comes to an end. But kind of what have you thought of Rebirth up to now, just as a line-wide whole, and kind of more importantly, Detective Comics, kind of where we're seeing Tim Drake?
Out of the New 52, I stopped reading comics altogether. I want to say like in the 20s, like around issue 25 or so of New 52, and got back into it with Rebirth and was buying every single Rebirth title. And I loved Rebirth. I thought Rebirth was pretty fantastic, with the exception of just a title here or there. It was just really amazing. And this is why I'm not happy, is I feel like all this great stuff that I liked about Rebirth is kind of unraveling or coming undone. One of the cool things about Rebirth was how many titles came out twice a month. And it looks like they're really going away from that. Superman and Action are going to go to monthly when Bendis takes over. Green Arrow and Aquaman have already gone to monthly. So it just kind of leaves the Justice Leagues, the Batman titles, and Wonder Woman, I think, as the only ones coming out every month, twice a month, I should say. I really liked what was going on with Superman. And Superman had a huge change in New 52, and then he had a huge change in Rebirth to now be a family man. And now I'm like, are they going to do another huge change on Superman? What are they going to do? Because I really like what's going on. Super Sons was one of the best books out there. Oh, yeah. It was so much fun, and I can't believe that's being canceled. And then the Batman books I thought were just amazing when Rebirth came out. And I hate to say it, and I know one of our listeners is not going to like this, but I'm getting kind of just burnt out on Tom King's romantic Batman Catwoman. Like, I get it, but I don't need to see, their dates, and I don't need every other panel Batman saying I love you. It's just getting a little old. All-Star Batman is, I guess, gone.
Yep.
That's just not around anymore. Detective is now, that was a gem, and now we've got a new shakeup on that. So I don't even know what's going on with that. The Superman titles were pretty good. Superwoman was terrible. That got canceled. But
yeah.
I don't know what's going on with the other Superman titles. So, and then the other stuff that's come out, and I hate to say this, but like Metal, I've just kind of like lost interest in Metal. I think the last 2 issues were 4 and 5, and I've started reading 4 like a couple times and put it down and never picked it back up. And I've got 5 sitting there. I just kind of lost interest in it. And Doomsday Clock has been a good story, but I don't see right now with 3 issues in where it's this groundbreaking, universe-changing event. Now, I'll give it time. I'll let it play out, but I'm not on the edge of my seat like when I read Rebirth, DC Comics Rebirth, and all these changes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what's next. And what was I say? I failed to see why Tim Drake was taken out of the comics for almost a year for what? Just to bring an evil version of him in? Like, that could have been done in 1 issue. Unless there's something else plays out, I don't see where Tim Drake plays a role in this as far as this podcast goes. And, keeping it Tim Drake centric. So I'm very uneasy about Rebirth, and I'm just like, no, I really like it. Why are we changing it? Now, maybe in 2 years I'll be like, oh man, they had made these changes and it was so great. But, the history of comics is a lot of changes that people go, oh, why did they do that? So I guess time will tell, but I'm not happy. And I guess we'll get your take on this too, but I also know the whole savior thing now, evil Tim Drake being the savior, I didn't really like that. I was okay with like evil Tim Drake being a Batman and, like kind of an evil version of Batman or something. But this whole savior thing now, I'm just kind of like, it looks like some kind of generic kind of Wildstorm, Midnighter character. And it's just, is it going to be the same thing every time? Just, oh, this superhero is going to go bad, so I have to go back and kill them. And how many times it doesn't seem like something Tim Drake would even do. Even in his worst moments, I don't see Tim Drake saying, I'm going to go back in time and commit murder, even if it's for a greater good. I just don't see it. And it just kind of was like, it kind of fell flat to me, the buildup of everything. But what's your take on it?
I was fine with the Jeff Johns version of Teen Titans that we talked about on the last episode, of that following Tim Drake into that point of he ended up having to do the things that we always said, why doesn't Batman just kill his villains? He knew the only way to stop these things from happening, he had to go one step farther. He didn't want to have to do it. He just needed to do it. So I think they took that nugget and then took it even a step farther as the savior, which, spoilers, if you haven't read Super Sons of Tomorrow, Tim's whole thing for when he becomes a savior, that he's got to kill John Kent. He's got to be taken out. He's got to be done. And then he realizes at the last minute, I'm making the problem worse, and then saves everybody and becomes a savior. So I guess I was okay with it. I liked the version that Tynion wrote in Lonely Place of Living, and as much as I love Tomasi, I don't think he had the handle on Tim's evil twisted version. I would have liked to have seen James write that and what would have been that next step. So I don't know if the offices weren't talking, like you said, taking Tim off the table. I don't think that was during the Button storyline, if you remember that. Tim was supposed to be in there and be a part of it. He even appears on the Flash cover. Then they took those pages out of that book. So I was wondering, what was his storyline that was going through the Button that they decided, we're going to do something different. And then Tynion decided, okay, I'm going to go back into Teen Titans. So it's kind of like there are some unanswered questions. Like I think at the beginning there was a purpose to do something with Tim, and then they decided, I don't think Tim Drake is going to do that. So then they let James bring him back in when he saw fit. So it just kind of sounded like that was the first like fumble of like, oh crap, you probably could have left Tim this whole entire time. So it was started to be a little weird time the books have been great. Even as much as we love Tim Drake, and he wasn't in the book for almost a year, Detective was still telling really good stories. So as much it was like, I wish Tim was here, you still kind of felt his presence there. I wished we could get just a little bit more from Tynion writing all these characters. So I would love him to pop up and do a Red Robin solo series, or maybe a shakeup that people are talking about. If you're reading the Titans, I don't know how caught up you are yet, but it sounds like the Titans team with Nightwing and Donna Troy and Roy and all them, that team may be fracturing. So who knows? Maybe Tim will end up over there, and that's where we'll meet Cassie and Connor and the real Bart Allen, not the New 52 fake Bart Allen. So this is like a weird time of like Rebirth was starting so strong, and I think they could have continued to keep writing Rebirth for much longer than they have without, they could have brought in Bendis, but say where I think he should have went was the Justice League. That is a title that seriously needs an A-list writer on that book. It sounds like Snyder's going to be helming the Justice League eventually, but I don't know what you thought about Justice League, and what if you have any thoughts about Bendis coming in to DC at all, Terence.
Yeah, Justice League America has been a huge disappointment from the first issue. Justice League itself, I was also a disappointment until Christopher Priest started writing it, and I'm a big fan of Christopher Priest's run on Deathstroke right now.
That was great.
And so, I've been a fan of what Christopher Priest has been doing on Justice League, which now it looks like he's going to be taking off that for Snyder, as you said. So, if I had to say where Bendis should have gone, I think if you look at his Marvel work and doing team-ups, Justice League crawls out. I think a book that kind of might need a little bit of a shake-up too is Suicide Squad, because that is got, I don't know, it seems to have just lost its edge a little bit. It just seems almost like they're like Justice League Part 2, and they're not criminals and crazy. And even there was an issue a couple of issues ago, I think it was like 28 or something around there, I don't know exactly, where it was there was a guy named Juan who was did you read that episode where he was just like a regular guy, and
right.
and they're the Suicide Squad, they're like, it's kind of like a take on Star Trek where they have the red shirts, and the red shirts always get killed, so they have all these red shirts from Belle Reve, and they're basically just like cannon fodder, and they're all getting killed. And I was finally reading that, I think it was a two-parter, and I'm finally like, God, the Suicide Squad is awful to these other prisoners and will just like sacrifice them. And I'm like, this is finally what the Suicide Squad really should be. It is a suicide mission. People die. They're awful to each other. And then it turned out, like, spoilers, like none of the people were really there. They were like projections of people who are already dead or something. Like, it turned out to be not as bad as you thought. And I was just kind of So I might have put Bendis on a Suicide Squad, or let him do Justice League of America and pick a new team, because obviously DC will allow two characters to be in two different books that are completely unconnected, because like Harley Quinn's title and the Suicide Squad have nothing to do with each other. And one, she lives in Brooklyn, and one, she's in a prison. And same thing with Batman, and Aquaman's been like that from time to time. So yeah, but also another thought I would have with someone like Bendis would be like, well, what are you inspired to write? Like, what is your passion? Like direct him, and what motivates him, and what does he want to do? And that's what would get the best work. And I guess apparently it's Superman. I'm just a little worried that, the Superman I've come to like in Rebirth is going to get changed again. And you know what else annoyed me? And this is, again, a first world problem. There's people who are wondering where their next meal will be, and where they have fresh water, and will they live to see another day, because their countries are so war torn. And here I am with my problems. But did you see and I think you even posted it on Twitter, so I'm asking you this even though I know the answer.
Right.
Did you see in Doomsday Clock, which is supposed to be a year in the future, I believe, that Batman has gone back to like the oval costume?
Oh, sorry, I was being a smartass. I didn't know I posted that picture. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like,
I don't like that. I like the new Rebirth costume. And then if you're going to make us go like, oh, wow, look, a new costume, make it something completely different. Like have him in the Asbats costume or something we've never seen before or something that makes us go, my gosh, what's going to happen in a year? Not just, oh, we're going back to 1984 again, you know?
Right. Part of me, I was like, oh, thank God the Oval's back. But then I was like, it's funny how things work. You know, seeing the Rebirth Batman suit, a lot of people were like, ugh. I know Justin Kowalski loves the purple inside of the cape. Folks, he doesn't. He hates that. But, you know, seeing the black belt with the yellow, I remember looking at the Batman logo with the yellow on the outside going, God, he looks like an action figure. And then about a year later, I was like, I really like the Rebirth suit. My wife got me the Rebirth logo on a t-shirt that's gray. I thought, this looks really pretty cool. And now to see that the Oval is coming back, I'm like, oh, I think it's cool, but I miss this Rebirth suit. So, yeah, I don't know. It's funny to be like, I wouldn't have changed Batman's costume this early in Doomsday Clock to go, oh, this is set a year in the future. I would have just held out and made that change in the last issue of the series, because now we're going to be reading the Doomsday Clock, seeing this new costume, which, you know, we can't quite see everything. I'm like, does he have a black belt? Does he have a yellow belt? Is he going to have trunks like Superman? So I don't know if this is more of like getting the characters back to their core, because when Rebirth started, Superman had like blue boots with red tips on the top, so now he's going to be having trunks in Action Comics 1000. So is this more of like a line wide, like we need to get all these characters kind of looking like themselves again? So if that's part of the initiative, I guess I'm okay with it. Like, okay, you know, I liked the Oval in the 80s and the early 90s, and I'll learn to love it again. It's one of those things like, I'm okay with change, but don't change 12 things at the same time, and I have 12 things on my plate. You know, that's hard to process as a fan. Like you said, Terence, first world problems here.
Yeah. And I also was hoping James Tinney in the fourth would make it to issue 1000 of Detective.
Yeah.
But speaking totally just random here, how many copies of Action Comics 1000 are you buying?
One.
Yeah, me too. I can't believe there's 10 different versions, each at $7.99.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. But the guy that does my comics for me, he's like, how many copies do you want? I said, one. What version do you want? I said, surprise me. I don't care. I want to read the issue. And initially, I thought this was supposed to be like a hardcover book.
There's like two.
Okay.
So there's like a $40 or so version of a hardcover that has all the covers and has all these different things about Superman, including Action Comics 1000, I think, in it. And then there's the like newsstand floppy, which I think is more pages. It's a bigger issue, but at $7.99. But I had posted on another Facebook page about comic books, like just putting it out there, like, how many are you people buying and who's getting what? And, you know, there's a lot of people who feel like, I'll just wait and get them in the dollar bin, you know?
Right.
So it'll be curious to see if it gets some like publicity and people who aren't buying comics show up at the comics store to get this issue because they saw it on the news, or if it'll just be, you know, hey, come on in, free Action Comics 1000 because I've got a, you know, or will we be seeing them in Ollie's in a couple of years, you know? Yeah.
Right, yeah. Because I remember the death of Superman, like I'm buying 6 of these things, and when I have kids someday, I'm paying for their college. Guess what? I still have 6 of those.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess you could say, like the old adage is, I guess it's a good problem to have that we're talking about this, that you and I are both still reading a good chunk of comics. Like, how many books are you currently on? Are you still buying all the books currently at the moment through your DCBS?
I pared back a couple months ago, so I'm probably at about 40 titles or so a month that I'm getting.
That's still impressive. I'm on 14, and I think I started Rebirth at 16.
I was gonna say there's a bunch of miniseries out right now. The miniseries have kind of inflated things. So they're when I say 40 titles, I'm including the miniseries as well.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like the Bane story that Chuck Dixon is writing, like I'm including that one. A couple of these others, like Doomsday Clock and Metal and all that stuff. And I'm in the same boat with you as Metal. Like I've got a stack of some of the side books and the Metal books, and I'm up to like issue 3 of Metal. So I'm the same way of like I want to read it. I know I need to read it. I need to read it before May, so I understand what the heck is going on. But that book just feels like a chore, and it should be that book that I was just going, this is amazing. And I'm going, oh, it's good. It's just really dense. So I don't know, maybe like once we get through the whole thing, we'll go, oh, I get it.
DC is really pushing this, the new age of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those titles did you pick up?
Let's see. 0 plus 0 is 0.
That's exactly how many I picked up, too. I was going to say, no matter how many you say, I know mine is either equal or less than yours.
Right.
So I was just like, nothing really jumps out at me. And if I hear that they're good, I'll pick it up with the trade or something like that. But I don't know why. It just did nothing in that new age of heroes. And even like starting like issue 2 and 3 on some of them, they've already got new creative teams. So
yeah, I don't see that lasting. I appreciate the DC's wanting to create new characters. I mean, at one point, Tim Drake was a new character, so I can appreciate that my favorite character was new at some point. So somebody could say, "You're not going to read Damaged? You know, he could be the greatest thing since sliced bread." Well, he could be, and if he is, then I'll say, geez, I wish I would have jumped on that when I had the chance. But I feel like now we have so many characters, and we have so many great characters that aren't being utilized well. I'm like, let's do that. Like Birds of Prey is getting canceled. So that means Black Canary and I forget who all is a part of that team. You know, those characters aren't going to wind up in a solo series or another book somewhere. So I'm like, we're going to cut characters that we know and love and have a lot of history for a new character, which again, I'm all for, but looking at the lineup of all those characters, I'm just like, nothing's grabbed me. And some of those characters are coming out of Metal, and they're not grabbing me in Metal either.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I just found out from you, I didn't know Birds of Prey was being canceled.
Yeah.
So, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that title a lot. That's really good. Yeah.
So do I. I like that better than I like the actual Batgirl title. So Batgirl is staying, but Batgirl and the Birds of Prey are getting canceled. So I'll just read off this list here as we get ready to wrap this up here, as we get ready into the episode. Super Sons is getting canceled. Supergirl, Batgirl, Birds of Prey. Tynion is leaving Detective Comics. Tomasi is leaving Superman, and Dan Jurgens is leaving Action Comics. Those are the books that have been canceled. And it sounds like Titans could be canceled or getting just a creator shakeup and a whole team shakeup. So I guess after Metal plays out and there's like this No More Justice title that Snyder is doing a miniseries on before he gets into the Justice League, that's where all these shakeups and all these characters are going to wind up in their new homes. And people that like Super Sons, if you follow Tomasi's Twitter feed, he's kind of hinting at he's not done writing John and Damian. They just may land in another book somewhere else. So
wow. Big changes. We'll see what's going on. Real quick, a couple quick updates. Ollie's is, you said, got another truckload of stuff. So I did go over the weekend and there was a couple new stuff, but not a major stuff. But one score I got, I think I paid $5 or $6 for it, was the Throne of Atlantis hardcover collected trade paperback with a digital code for the digital version of the comic and a digital version of the movie, the Blu-ray of the movie, and the DVD of the movie, all in one big combo pack for like $4.99. So that was my big Ollie score. Did you get anything from Ollie's? I know you went, but did you get anything?
You're going to laugh at the book that I got. I'm a sucker for these books. And I think it was actually in the kids section, but it happened to be laying with the other comics. I don't know if you know what DK Books is. It's like the encyclopedia books where you can go through and say, oh, here's on, Batman. Batman was created in 1939, that type of thing. This is Batman Adventures of the Dark Knight, includes double-sided pull-out poster, and I'll have to put an image up here. I'll have to send this to you when we get off the call here, but you can put your finger in the book and make Batman swing left to right inside the book. But aside from that, my wife's like, that book looks like it's made for a 4-year-old. But when you open it up, it's the new encyclopedia version for the Rebirth that they did, and they just took basically all the Batman-oriented pages out and put it in its own little book. And I paid $3.99 for that. And I'm a sucker for these encyclopedias. So when we're doing podcasts, when we're talking like, well, where did so-and-so appear? I'll pull these encyclopedias out, and I'll go, oh, it's in such and such. Just looking at Birds of Prey here, Black Canary, one of the Courts of the Owl was in that, and I thought there was somebody else they're not showing right here. But, Batgirl, Black Canary, Katana, Strynx, Condor, Poison Ivy, and Starling were some of the ones that were in Birds of Prey. So there you go. My $3.99 just paid off. So that's all I got from Ollie's.
Cool.
Well, before we go down a rabbit hole any farther, we wanted to record the beginning of this, so I thought, hey, Terence, we'll get on here since Rob thought his podcast was going to be too long, so I cut it down into 2 halves, and then Batgirl to Oracle just released a 3-hour podcast with Michael Bailey, and Brian's like, I don't think you have to worry about our podcast being long if somebody else is putting out a 3-hour podcast. So right now, at the time we're recording this, we've been recording for 49 minutes. So I may just smack the whole entire thing right here. So if this podcast is too long for you, just send Batgirl and Oracle a nice email and say, hey, because your long 3-hour podcast, Everyone Loves a Drake just went into an hour and 20 minutes.
And be sure to put P.S. Barbara Gordon belongs with Tim Drake as far as a couple.
Yeah.
That will drive the people on that show crazy.
Yes. Yeah. And say it was in a video game, so now that's considered canon. So make it sound like you know what you're talking about, but in some kind of twisted way, make it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. Stella loves that.
Yeah.
So this is where we're going to let you go. Stay tuned because our review of Robin 14, the conclusion of Troika, which probably should have been 2 issues, and you'll hear Terence and I talk about it, will start right now.
Sawate. My name is Stella, and I am the host of Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Batgirl to Oracle is a podcast dedicated to Barbara Gordon, the first woman to hold the mantle of Batgirl for an extended period of time, roughly 1967 to 1988. The goal of Batgirl to Oracle is to examine the character's history from her first appearance as Batgirl and continuing through her tenure as Oracle. Each episode looks at a vintage issue of Detective Comics or Batman, as well as other books like Justice League and Freedom Fighters, and modern issues of Batgirl and Birds of Prey. I also keep track of news involving Batgirl and other members of the Bat family, and I have a revolving series of segments like Babs in the Tube, which highlights appearances of Babs in TV and film, Shipper Spotlight, which looks at a variety of comic and pop culture couples, gives their history, and determines whether they are hot or not, Reading with Stella, which could be described as an audio drama, or just me reading a book that relates to Babs or doesn't, and of course, the mainstay literature recommendation. I have been blessed to interview writers Scott Beatty and Chuck Dixon on their Batgirl Year 1 work, Brian Q. Miller on his Batgirl run, Dwayne Swarzynski and Christy Marks on their separate Birds of Prey work, and the creators and actors of the Batgirl Spoiled, the web series. I hope to interview more creators and actors in the future. My goal, most importantly, is to make a fun, entertaining, and thoughtful show that people enjoy and from which they learn. Find the show online at thebatmanuniverse.net and iTunes, and follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at Batgirl to Oracle. Thank you, and fly on, Babs lovers.
You are about to see the first public exhibition of an entirely new form of entertainment. You are about to see.
Because you demanded it. It's Treasury Cast, a podcast devoted to the greatest comics format of all time, the Treasury Edition. DC, Marvel, Archie, IDW, and more, bigger than life. It's the Treasury Cast, part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, and on fireandwaterpodcast.com.
All right, before we discuss Robin 14, let's take a look at the information again from Mike'sAmazingWorld.com. And let's take a look at the credits for Robin 14. The cover date is January 3rd, 1995, with a cover price of $1.50. The editor is Dennis J. O'Neill. The title, Big City Bomber. The writer is Chuck Dixon, the penciler is Tom Grummett, the inker is Raymond Kersing, the letterer is Albert Tobias D. Gunzman, and the colorist is Adrian Roy. The cover credits for the newsstand edition are Tom Grummett and Raymond Kersing. The deluxe version of this is Tom Grummett, and the inker is Terry Austin. And now on to the synopsis, again brought to us by DCWiki.com. The synopsis for Robin 14, Big City Bomber. Robin finds himself facing the KGBeast in the midst of a blazing chemical plant. He has shot Harvey Bullock, but Robin gets some help from the new detective, Mackenzie Bach. Batman is elsewhere battling Romanana, though soon realizes she has no idea where the nuclear device is. Robin holds his own against the KGBeast, but eventually his foe decides to throw the baseball-shaped device, and it looks like Robin isn't going to make the catch. Luckily, Batman has just arrived on the scene, and does make the catch. Gotham is saved. Bullock is in a coma, but it looks like he should pull through. Meanwhile, out on Blackgate Island, the Clue Master is planning something involving Robin. I love this as Robin 14, the special edition of this. The newsstand edition is okay, but I like this cover so much better, and I haven't said it in a while, but Terence, yes, this would be a poster on my wall. I just think This is a really cool shot of Batman here, and the first time Robin's appeared on the cover. I know this is his own book, but they've now inserted Robin here to say, hey, this is my book, but Batman is still in his same pose here, and it's just a really cool shot with the bat signal now behind him, and Batman is now in full color. So if you haven't been opening these books, at least now you can see what the suit looks like, and it's mentioned here in the book, but Bruce does add actual blue gloves and blue boots to the suit, and you can kind of see it's not really black, it's more now a gray suit here. So what do you think of the cover for this special edition of Robin?
Yeah, definitely the best of the four special covers for Troika. I like the bat signal in the background. Andrew on our Facebook page, he commented and he had said, I like Robin's face in the bottom right, almost like he's thinking, hey, isn't this my comic? So, yeah, we agree, Andrew. And what's interesting, though, is on the newsstand editions, all four issues say Troika, and they have parts 1, 2, 3, 4 on them. But on the special covers here, they don't say Troika at all. And in fact, in Detective and Robin, it doesn't say Troika inside it either. Right. But I do like the newsstand, the KGBeast hovering over Robin. He's got these like brass knuckles that are like spikes. I would not want to get punched with that, which seems like a little overkill. Like your other hand is a machine gun. Do you really need like spikes to punch somebody? Like, this issue was, I love this issue. This was a fantastic issue. It makes me a little sad that it's the second to last issue for Tom Grummett. We'll get some covers from him, but his art just looks fantastic with Ray Kreising, and it's just cool to see him drawing not only KGBeast, but Bruce Wayne again. But if you open the cover and you look at the first page, count how many holes are in the KGBeast's costume or his chest area, and then as you go through the issue, costume magically repairs itself because the holes disappear, which I didn't even notice. But in the letter columns in Robin 19, someone complained about that, and they wrote, why does the KGBeast even want to take over Gotham? Why, he's invented self-repairing fabric. Won't that make him rich? So, and the editor did apologize. He did say sorry, it was an oversight. He said he got so concerned about the Rip and Robin's costume and making sure that was correct, he kind of forgot about the Beast's costume as well. So awesome cover. Yeah, I love this cover, and through all of Prodigal, all we saw of Tom Grummett was just covers. There was no interiors by him at all. So it was really nice to see Tom Grummett do a full
interior, and like you said, this is like next to last, full interior, and then just a couple covers, and Grummett will be out by issue 16, totally from the Robin series. And I think this is a great Robin issue all the way through, and the art is just superb. This really makes me sad that, this is one of the next to last books that Grummett's doing. And I didn't even realize about the KGBeast costume until you brought that up. I think by like page 6 or 7, the 3 holes is turned to like 1, and it's gone from the right pack to the left pack, and then, like you said, he's got the regenerative costume. So I don't know how Robin's going to get out of this one. But Robin also, did you catch that he's wearing a rebreather here on the first page here that he's not wearing in the last issue in Detective?
Yeah, I just assumed he just pulled that out at some point, but yeah, it does kind of appear out of nowhere, and then it kind of disappears. You never see him take it off, which I assume he could take it off panel, but between page 3, he's got it on page 3, he doesn't have it on page 4. But it's kind of weird because, well, they're carrying Harvey Bullock. So if you look on page 3, he's clearly wearing it. It's like, I mean, they really highlighted that he's wearing it.
Right.
And, well, Brock's got Bullock's front and he's got the back, and they complain that he's eating too much donuts. Then on page 4, there's a silhouette of them still carrying Bullock, and he doesn't have it. So that means at some point they said, put Bullock down. Hold on, we got to take a break. Let me take my rebreather off. All right, now let's pick him up again. Now let's keep going. So, yeah, that rebreather.
But Grummett draws it so well. I'm forgiving of it. The funny thing is here from 2 previous podcasts ago when we were concluding Prodigal and Bullock and the GCPD were firing a hail of bullets over Robin's head to blast Steel Jacket out the window. This is kind of a nice payback for Robin here that the GCPD was trying to save Robin's life, and we made mention on that show that Bullock was forever like, oh, these darn kids, and I think you said in that episode that Bullock's like, hey, he's one of us, don't hurt him. So Dixon must have remembered that Tim's trying to get Bullock out of all the fire and all the rubble and all the burning that's going on in the kind of oil field here, and Tim's checking for the pulse while Brock's going to go back out and is realizing the GCPD is coming, so he's going to kind of leave Robin and go out on his own here, and Tim's going to try and take matters into his own hands in a few pages and try and save Bullock's life when he's checking for the pulse here. I think their conversation is really well between the two, and they're kind of getting a little history of like, yeah, so you're Robin, you're new to the GCPD, and Tim's realizing pretty quickly that Batman's probably not coming. He's wondering where he's at, and they've kind of got to get Bullock back on his feet because the KGBeast is going to be coming around the corner at any moment.
So it's kind of funny too, because on page 4, as Robin and Brock are carrying Bullock, Brock actually mentions to Robin, he says, I was there when that flying psycho dragged you out of the high towers, which he's referring to Steel Jacket in issue 13. And Robin says, that's me in not one of my best moments. And then Brock mentions something. Brock says, then later on in the panel, they get Bullock down. Robin's kind of standing over Bullock or crouched in front of Bullock and like feeling for his pulse. And Tim says, breathing shallow, heartbeat weak and fast, doesn't look good. To which Brock replies, that's a nasty head injury he took, Robin. That was a comma there. I should have said that. Yeah. Could be comatose. If we don't get him on a respirator, he's a goner. At which Tim says, the police department requires a medical degree now? And Brock kind of goes, ... I read a lot. So, like, he's hiding something there. The only thing is, though, it's like, Bullock took like a 50-pound or 50-gallon drum to the head. Like, you don't need a medical degree to know, like, you got to get him some medical attention or he's a goner. Like, he's like, what are you, a doctor? Like, no, I watched him take a giant Russian monster throw a 50-gallon thing at his head. So, but there you can definitely see that there's more to Brock than meets the eye. What it is, you don't know.
Well, and the funny thing is, he needs a rebreather. Shouldn't Brock have said, hey, you know that breathing mask that you were wearing just a little bit ago? Where did that disappear to? At least he could be breathing maybe a little bit cleaner here.
Oh, man, why did I throw that at the Beast? Yeah.
We have, moving into pages 6 through 7 here, for the Batman interlude, which, man, I love the top panel on page 6. Grummet has Batman in a really cool stance here with his cape billowed out, with Romana in her full winter fatigues here in the house. And Batman's just going to town on one of the last few members of Troika and her gang here. And Grummet's movement on Batman just kind of punching and kicking these guys is just so cool. And then the shot up on page 7, that panel where Batman's turning around, his cape's just kind of coming over the back part of his shoulder where he's talking to Romana after he's kind of kicked the last guy to the ground. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird too, and maybe it's on the side, but if you look on page 6, that top panel, which is a continuation of that cool scene that we were talking about in the last comic where he's telling her you'll understand terror, but it looks like Batman's got the fins on one leg but not the fins on another leg. Do you see that? Now it could be because it's on the side and not in there, but it just looked kind of weird. But on the bottom of page 7, there's 2 close-up shots of Batman's face. Looking at it, the way Grummet drew them, at least I see it. Do you think that could be Adam West? Like, I see that and I look like that could be Adam West.
Yeah,
you see that. There's a lot of Adam West in that side. Yeah,
the ears are a little bit shorter, like the Adam West, and he's got the dark kind of faceplate, if you will, where just that black part of the cowl where everything else is blue. Yeah, I definitely got an Adam West vibe out of that. We got page 8 here with Tim checking Bullock's pulse and taking his cape off to make it a makeshift pillow. Tim giving Bullock CPR, which has got to. He's like Bruce said earlier, you're sworn to protect lives, just not one life here. But this is also saving the life of a guy that would like nothing better than to throw you in the slammer, typically from Bullock. But Tim's going to do the right thing and try and get Bullock, since his kind of pulse has stopped and he's stopped breathing, get him revived before the GCPD can get here. And seeing Brock kind of race back to Gordon and the rest of the GCPD with Montoya and her new partner, the huge mustache that Gordon has in the panel on 9.
Yeah, it looks like the Monopoly Man.
We have more of Batman in 10 taking out Romana, and she's firing a hail of bullets, and all of her guys are down. Where Batman is crouched in the bottom of 10 here, like climbing up the wall, almost kind of like a Spider-Man would a little bit, where he's kind of his feet on one wall and his back against the other, kind of waiting to pounce on her. I think is a really cool shot here. Robin and the KGBeast going at it through 9 and 10 before Brock catches back up with the GCPD. So what'd you think about these series of pages here?
Well, I really, really, really love this issue, and I really love that Tim is doing CPR on Bullock, because it just shows that Tim is such a hero on so many levels. Like, it's one thing to beat up bad guys, but it's another thing to save someone's life doing CPR, and to put your lips on Harvey Bullock's lips. That's going like far and above the Call of Duty, because I can't imagine his breath is pretty good, and he doesn't shave often. So
cigarettes and donuts.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I love that. And then the Batman stuff is a little like, oh, come on, Batman, just take them down. Like, this is a little, to me, this is the only part of the issue that felt a little bit like filler, and a little bit of like, let's keep Batman somewhere else so that Robin can have some time, as Robin. But I do like it in that it does then set up that Robin is taking on the KGBeast by himself. If you look on page 11, you can see the KGBeast is jumping down towards Robin, and he's got his bow staff ready to go. And there you can really see how the KGBeast's costume has healed up. And or I guess, it's plausible that either, Superboy Prime was punching the walls of the universe, which causes things to change, or there was a time period where was the KGBeast this whole time where Harvey was getting CPR and they were carrying Harvey. So maybe he just took that time to take out his sewing kit and do a little costume repair.
Right.
And then he left one to just kind of look cool, and then he's going after Robin. This is cool watching Robin take down. And again, the KGBeast on 12 has this great dialogue of, "We'll be killing you,"
Right. Which it made me chuckle today as I was finishing this up for the podcast. I'm like, all right, we got our atypical Russian dialogue here. We have Brock finally meeting up with the GCPD and kind of telling Gordon and Montoya what's going on. She tears off into the fire and debris after the GCPD. We're seeing that Brock and Gordon are getting a chance to meet one another for the first time under these fast circumstances, and Brock makes mention that Robin's there but not Batman, so that's where Gordon is asking, is Batman there with him? And he's saying, no, I don't see him. And we see what's kind of going on with Batman through page 14 of finally getting the upper hand on Romana here as they're going down a flight of stairs. 15 and going through of a latter part is the KGBeast coming back into action now after having sewn up his kit and his costume here. And Robin, for a brief moment on 16, realizes that Bullock's got a gun. I could probably make quick use of this and use it against the KGBeast. And Grummet here draws his hand shaking a little bit like he's going to reach for the gun and says no, he's not going to do it. He swore to take an oath to not use a gun and is able to get his bow staff out, but almost gets impaled. When I first read this, I thought the KGBeast on 17 rather drove the spike through his tore through his costume, which you kind of said was brought up in the editor's note, but I thought he actually stuck and ran him through on these couple panels here. And Robin takes the R off his chest, which we've talked about him using quite a few times to kind of get free of the KGBeast. And we'll save the next panel here for a little bit because it's a little gruesome. So what did you think of this section?
I absolutely loved it. I love that fact that Robin gets the choice of, should I use this gun? It's right here. And then just no, because of, what that means being the partner of Batman and not using guns. And this is once again, let's not go on. I don't want to take it on a tangent, but when I'm watching Batman use a gun in, Batman v Superman, this is why that bothers me. It's growing up on comics like this and feeling like this is the core of the characters. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just, as some people don't have a problem with it. And then you could turn around and say, well, he won't shoot him, but at the same point, he'll rip off his R and then ram it into him. Right. So, I get it. But, the only thing that rings just a little hollow, and it doesn't feel this way when I first read it, and even rereading it again, I was like, does he use the gun? Does he? Oh, okay, no. I had that moment of not remembering. But when you go back, Brock shot KGBeast right in the chest with a shotgun, and he just kind of shrugged it off. So you wonder, even if Robin did pull out the gun and did start shooting, would it have actually slowed the KGBeast down or not? It may not have been quite as effective as if he shot you or I with it,
Right, yeah. Well, and his suit has got a healing factor of 400.
Yeah, exactly.
KGBeast only needs 6 panels and he's back to normal.
That's it. He's got a 20-sided die that he rolled and it repaired him. Yeah.
Right. The last couple pages here of the fight, on top of 18, it's all in silhouette, but man, is it gruesome. Robin decides, hey, maybe I can pull off the eye patch and that may disorient him, so he rips it thinking off of his mask and quickly realizes, oh no, whoops, that was wired into his skull, into the back of his head. He essentially ripped out his eye, and the KGBeast is bleeding profusely at it. And Grummet draws a very gruesome, you're just seeing the blood splatter coming right out of the eye socket, and Robin's holding the eye mechanism in his hand. I remember reading it back then and even today going, wow, that is kind of gruesome to kind of see that there. And then the KGBeast essentially throwing the grenade over his shoulder like a baseball, and Tim running to try and get it he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. And guess who shows up? it's Batman to catch it at the last minute. So what you think about this section before we get to the end?
Yeah, I really like it, and I was trying to find it, but I can't find it. Here it is. In the letter column in episode 19, Benjamin Sigilli from Hollywood, California wrote, and this is what I thought too. He said, among my favorite moments, the splash page, all of Gotham dies. I love it. Montonia's concern for Bullock on page 15 was touching and insightful. Tim's reaction when he tears out the Beast's cyber eye on page 18, quote, "Oh, yuck," was hilarious. Right in line with Tim's age and personality, too. I thought it was very, very cool, and just like the perfect, just Tim Drake, like, oh, yuck, so.
Right.
Yeah. And then the whole the end here, I guess the last thing the KGBeast does before he collapses is take that baseball-sized nuclear device, which is no longer covered by baseball, but I guess he peeled off the covering, but yet somehow it's kind of the same size as now a baseball. I don't know. Yeah. The device has changed sides between issues. He throws it up in the air, and I'll let you take it from there.
We move to the Foxes getting their house repaired and kind of coming home to new paint, and Bruce Wayne has paid everything to get everything all set up, and kind of double paid the construction workers to get everything back in working order, back in the Batcave. Terence had mentioned that Bruce is getting new gloves, and mentioning the boots, and if Bullock's doing okay. Who happens to show up in the last page of the book is the Clue Master, which the next one says the Clue Master and the Spoiler. So, Terence, what'd you think of the end of this issue and the end of Troika?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, you could poke holes in the fact that Batman shows up right in the last second and catches the thing, but it's also, you just got to have fun with it and go with it, and it's a really great character piece on Tim Drake. I was kind of confused at first on page 19 where Batman just kind of catches the device and then they just kind of stand there and talk. I kind of thought the KGBeast was getting away, but I guess he was incapacitated. And then the ending with Lucius Fox is pretty fun, and Bruce Wayne pays double, and I'm thinking, man, I wish I could be Bruce Wayne and pay people to do double so they do good work and right on time. The last two pages, the last page they talk about getting new gloves and new boots, which let me see. I'm trying to look on the table if you can see the old boot. The old boots seem to be on the table, but there's no little spikes on them. And then the boots that Bruce is wearing do have the spikes. So maybe those are the new boots on the table. Yeah. And he's taking up. I'm spending way too much time analyzing Batman's gloves and boots. We've been recording now for 9, 10, almost 3 hours. And good thing we recorded an hour earlier. If we'd started this at 9, it'd be late. This is like the old Bat fans where we'd be up to 3 in the morning recording. So we have completely lost it. And he's got a nice CPU with some floppy disks on that. But where does he plug in the CPU? I don't know. But anyway, after analyzing page 22, the artwork's good. Batman's getting suited up. He looks like Adam West. It looks like a modern version of Adam West. I really like it. Almost like the animated movies they have. And then, the last page is like, it's almost like an ad for the next issue. It's better than just an ad or that. It's like a little prologue. And I was really happy to see, the Clue Master's coming back, because if the Clue Master's coming back, then that means his daughter's coming back too. It's spoiler. So the next issue is penciled by Grummett. It's the last, but we still get some covers. I think it's a 2-part story because 16 has got the awesome Tom Grummett cover with Robin like holding the spoiler, and there's all these guns pointed at him. So yeah, it's kind of got me like psyched up for the next story arc. So I think it does exactly what it's supposed to do, get you psyched up for the next part.
I know I've said it previously on the podcast and kind of talking about it. This is kind of the end of phase 3 as I was kind of plotting out the show. I think Terence and Ryan and I could probably have told you, in a nutshell, the Tim Drake story from the very beginning to this point. It's, as much as I like Nightfall and Prodigal and Tim's history, this was the next section after Troika that I was really kind of excited about to do on the podcast, that when other Batman podcasts cover these stories that happen to deal with Tim Drake, this is about where they stop. You don't hear people going into Robin 16, Robin 21, Robin 35, all those other ones that I think for Terence and Ryan, Terence, you could tell me if I'm wrong here, but there's going to be some of these books that I'm really going to have to read for the podcast. A couple for the first time that I was missing some holes, but some that I probably only read when they first came out. And as much as we like Tim Drake, and like I said, we could kind of recite Tim's story up to this point. So I'm real excited to go start getting into uncharted territory for Tim Drake that other podcasts, other Batman podcasts you're listening to. You usually stop with Troika because that's, then people jump to No Man's Land or jump to Hush or other big event books. But this is going to be really fun to kind of dig deep into the main body of the Robin series. So I'm real excited for some of these stories that the Robin book is really going to become a Tim Drake focused book. Yeah, he's going to get pulled back into the main Batman story when it's needed for crossovers, but we're going to see a lot of world building and a lot of new characters that we're going to talk about on the podcast. So I'm real excited about that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. For the writing aspect of the book, you get Chuck Dixon for a long time, and his writing's great. And until I believe the story arc of Contagion, which is, I got them all right here. What issue is Contagion? Well, there's Underworld Unleashed, but that's just kind of a crossover of the whole DC universe in issues 23 and 24. And then Contagion is not until 27 and 28, except for that little bit. For the most part, it's all self-contained Robin stories, and it's, Robin's time to shine. And as bummed out as I am about Tom Grummett's art, and him leaving, eventually, I'm not sure which issue here. I think it's issue not 17, not 18. So it's issue 19, the one I've been reading the letter columns out of. Mike Waringo, if I'm saying that right, takes over the art. And I was a little confused because Ringo does the covers for 17 and 18. You can see his little Ringo on it, but I don't think he does the interiors because there's different names on the cover. And Mike Waringo, I'm probably just calling him Ringo because I don't think I'm saying the Waringo part right. But I had known his art on The Flash. I had been reading The Flash, and gosh, that was a run written by Mark Waid, and God, that was one of the greatest comics I ever read as far as having a cliffhanger making you want to read the next issue. And maybe I was young and I didn't realize how cliffhangers work and stuff, but Mark Waid was fantastic. And so I really liked his art on The Flash, and I believe he was the first artist to design and draw Impulse. And so when I found out he was becoming a Robin artist and took over the Robin book, I was very excited about it. And his art is a bit stylized. I remember in the columns and stuff, not everybody liked his art. It's a bit like Kelly Jones, where some people love it and some people hate it. But I really liked his art, and I think it worked really well for the Tim Drake and the Robin character, and I really liked how he drew the suit and stuff. So to get to review and go over some of these Ringo comics, I feel like it's the Beatles, but the Ringo's comics is kind of exciting because once again, I don't think a lot of people have touched on this material, and it's going to be a little tricky to try to keep track of all right, so here's Robin and he's in a solo story. It's just I'm just pulling something here, issue 21 is called Playtime at Ninja Game, where he's fighting ninjas. So it's kind of well, where's Batman at that point, and what's going on in Detective, and is Robin in any other books, and should we cover those books as well or skip them, or so it'll be fun. Yeah, the fun thing that's going to be about this podcast is where are we going to really stay down the Robin path and kind of peek in to see what Tim's doing. So I think this is going to give us a lot of breathing room to kind of go and see. And it might be nice too, as Terence is doing the YouTube channel, and say, hey, this thing of Young Justice is kind of going on at the same time the Robin book is. Maybe the
podcast will kind of dip into a Young Justice issue that'll kind of piggyback what you're doing on the YouTube channel. So I'm real excited for where the podcast is going to go from here. So, but I think this is where we're going to put a pin in it, because if Terence and I go on any longer, now that it's 11 o'clock p.m. our time, we're really going to start getting slappy. So if you kind of heard us go off on the rails a little bit, this is more like Terence said, our Bat fans days, where like I think we realize why we don't record this late normally. So.
I could just see you trying to write the description of this. It's Robin Terence talk, the second part of Troika and Star Wars and YouTube and Justice League and the Dark Knight and pretty much everything under the sun. And it was funny because when I was doing some of that research, like I told you about, for this, at one point I looked something up under Tim Drake, and in the back of my mind I was kind of thinking like, could we do every one of his appearances? Could we, like, where do we go for, and it said Tim Drake had appeared in 999 comics, and I was like, one less than 1,000. So I was kind of like, I don't know if we'll get to 999 on the podcast, but
Yeah, just to rest Terrence's mind, I'm kind of thinking we'll probably stay right in the Robin book unless there's like a really big event going on, like, hey, we've really got, this one needs to be covered. Tim's a real big part of it. Or like Terence said, we're going to be up to 1 billion episodes trying to cover all these appearances. So,
we should do something crazy, like spend like do like 4 podcasts on just like some random, just like Robin Annual 5, and just be like, and then No Man's Land, just spend 5 minutes on it, be like, the city blows up next. Yeah.
Well, on the behalf of Terence, this is Slap Happy Rob, and you've been listening to Robin Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for listening to Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. This has been brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net. Tim Drake, Robin, and all Batman-related characters are under copyright of DC Comics. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes, so no infringement is intended by this show. This show is not a good revenue stream. Actually, there's not a stream at all. All music and sound clips are under copyright by their respective copyright holders. So there should be no need to send the Penguins lawyers after us for ill-gotten gains, because there are none. You can get a hold of the show a few different ways. We are on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. You can also email in at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. Our Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. And as always, you can message directly over at the BatmanUniverse.net. So email, tweet, or message us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll read your comments or responses on the show. The show you're listening to can be found a few different ways through iTunes and Windows Media, also over at our host, TBU. Leave us a review on iTunes if you listen there. It'll help spread the word of the show. Make sure you head over to the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin. Thanks for listening to the show and hearing why everyone loves the Drake. We'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.